Hello folks, and welcome to the paddock of a new Formula One circuit. Lawrence Barretto, Will Buxton with you in Mugello. And as the sun rises on a beautiful Tuscan morning, news that Sebastian Vettel has signed for 2021 and beyond for Aston Martin. We had an inkling this was coming, didn't we, Lawrence? But it's all the dominoes have started to fall really within the last 12 hours.
I love a bit of drama over breakfast.
Yeah.
Will. So we know that Seb's had a contract on the table from Racing Point, from Lawrence Stroll for a long time now. It's just been a case of whether he wanted to stay. Then, as you just said, the dominoes fell quite quickly. It was only yesterday that everyone decided that this is how it was all going to play out. Seb didn't sign the contract till very late on. Then when that was decided, Checo was the one who, I think it's a nice thing to do, Checo was the one who made the decision, or the announcement, sorry, of what was going to happen to him. Then the team had to go through the process of, right, well, we need to now announce the new driver who's coming through. And it all happened very, very quickly.
So we were discussing this earlier. Seb, we understand, didn't even put pen to paper until last night.
Very late, exactly. And I think that shows just how quickly everything happened. I think Seb's taken a lot of time to decide exactly what he wants to do, whether he wants to stay, whether he wants to go. But I think he's decided, particularly given the speed and the performance of Racing Point this year, that they actually offer him a very good opportunity next year to be competitive.
Do you think the Racing Point being on the podium and having the potential to even win that race in Monza on a weekend where Ferrari were frankly nowhere has helped to solidify that thought process for him?
I do. I think it couldn't be more different than chalk and cheese, because Ferrari was struggling so much and Racing Point are basically on the up. And with the regulations staying reasonably stable, they're almost certainly going to have a good car next year. So that's about as much of a guarantee in Formula One as you can get about having a good car, and you don't get that very often.
What did the press release today actually say about Sebastian's future?
So he's going to be at the team for 2021 and beyond. It's basically a multi-year contract, very standard in Formula One. It's going to be a 2+1 sort of thing. And he wanted to commit for the long time because it is still a long-term project. Yeah. As great it is that Aston Martin are competing for podiums and victories, they're not doing that consistently. Well, sorry, they're not competing for victories on pure performance, but they are for podiums. It's going to take some time, and Sebastian wants to be there, hopefully, to lead them all the way back to the front, and that's going to take some time. I think also what it does say is that they wanted his experience. It's a statement of intent from what will be called Aston Martin Formula One Team from next year. It says a lot about what Lawrence Stroll's ambitions are, and we've seen he's a very ambitious man since he's come into Formula One. He's willing to do what it takes to win, and signing a 4-time world champion does exactly that.
Okay, so is this a marketing signing or is it a competitive signing? And do you think it is the right signing for for Aston Martin?
So I think in placing Checo, it's got to be a performance signing because they're replacing the driver who's driving at a very high level. I think that Sebastian hasn't had the best time of it this year, but I still think that we've seen enough in flashes to say that he has got the speed. He's still got that performance. He just needs the team around him. He needs someone to put their arm around him and support him, and he really hasn't had that at Ferrari this year.
So you think he's the right guy?
So I genuinely think he's the right guy.
I am a massive Seb fan. I think he's a phenomenal racer, a brilliant world champion. I would question, however, how he has looked and how he has fared in a mid-grid car this year, and whether he still has that ability to fight, to scrap in that midfield, which is, let's make no bones about it, Aston Martin, for next year, we don't expect them to be a Mercedes or a Red Bull from the off. They will be a midfield team. Does Sebastian have what Checo has, which is that ability to draw that car out of the midfield and put it onto a podium on any given day? A guy who can look after his tyres, fight in that midfield, has that knowledge, that nous to be able to do. I don't know. And Seb's had it levelled at him for a long time. You know, that whole, he can't win a race from lower than third on the grid. That's always been levelled at him.
I think the truth is, he doesn't know, and we don't know whether he's going to be able to do it because he has rarely been in that position. I think where he's been at the back of the pack with Ferrari, he's been so far back that there tends to be problems when the field congests at that point. He's going to be hoping that he's not going to be that far back. He'll be in that kind of row 3, row 4 scenario. And if he can kind of steer clear of the melee that normally occurs behind him, he'll probably feel that he's confident enough to do that. Seb backs himself. I think that's the important thing here. He hasn't lost motivation, and he could have done, given how much Ferrari have struggled. He's just stayed strong, and I think that he feels that he can race in the pack. I'll be interested to see if he can.
There will, of course, be those who question whether Racing Point, Aston Martin have replaced the right driver, because although Lance obviously took a brilliant podium at Monza last time out, and you can't deny he drove well, there are those that would say, well, might Checo have finished higher? Might he have won the race? Might he not have made that mistake at the start, on the second start, that saw him plummet back? What would a team of Sebastian Vettel and Sergio Perez actually do for the competitive fortunes of a team like Aston Martin?
I think that's a fair discussion point, given how strong Checo has been, and Checo alongside Sebastian would be a formidable lineup. But the reality is, Lance is Lawrence's son. Lawrence bought a team initially to keep Lance racing in Formula One. He can't just ditch him now.
No. But they have ditched a driver without whom the team would not exist. Is it fair on Sergio Perez? And as he said in his statement last night, and you could feel, you can sense the pain in his words, he did essentially something that nobody would have wanted to do by taking that team to court, to initiate sort of the processes that led to Racing Point becoming something, having to stand against VJ, stand against Force India, to allow Racing Point to exist, to save the jobs of all of those people at his team, his teammates, as he so rightly calls them, to give them this future, to give them this chance, and to have a long-term contract with the team, and then to be told, well, actually, your contract doesn't matter, everything you've done for this team doesn't matter, your competitiveness for this team doesn't matter, we'll see you later.
It's no easy thing to do what you just said, stand out by yourself and make a decision like that. I remember in Hungary, when that happened, he was visibly stressed, visibly upset. The stress on his shoulders over those few months when they were coming up to make that decision, and then for it to all end like this is hugely sad. He's committed to this team. He's got this team essentially almost single-handedly on a driver's perspective to where they are today.
Yes.
And now he's got to go.
Those fourth place finishes in the championship, by and large, because of the performances that Checo put in.
All those podiums, 5 podiums out of the 6 that they've had are all Checo.
Yeah.
It can't have been an easy decision, but it also shows the brutality of Formula One. Like, there is loyalty, for sure, but I think when it comes down to it, if you've got to make a cold-hearted decision, it can be done, as is evidenced here.
It also shows that contracts really aren't worth the virtual paper they're written on. Might we see Checo end up somewhere else, perhaps a seat which we might have thought was already taken if performances don't go the way that we expect, or might he end up somewhere that does have an actual vacancy, a Haas, an Alfa Romeo, somewhere like that?
I think my money would be on Alfa Romeo. They've already said before we even got to this point that they would be interested in taking Checo on. And they could really do with his help, frankly. You were just talking earlier about how good he is kind of pulling a team forward. They need pulling, big time. So and obviously he's been at Sauber before, obviously when they were known as Sauber rather than Alfa Romeo. So I think he would be a great signing for them, and there is a real opportunity there. That said, Kimi Raikkonen's really turned a corner this year. It's a difficult decision for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we factor in also, Nico Hülkenberg is still on the market. What chance of that old Force India lineup of Hülkenberg and Perez, such a killer lineup at the time. Now with all of their experience, what a lineup it would be potentially for a team like a Haas or an Alfa Romeo into 21.
Well, Fred's a huge admirer of Nico, isn't he? He
Absolutely.
rates him very highly, and that would
race
be
into the championship in GP2, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hugely strong lineup. The trouble there is that one seat needs to kind of be handed over to a Ferrari junior driver. So they're going to have to come to some arrangement if they want to do that. You mentioned Haas earlier. I think that it wasn't really an option a few weeks ago. I think now that he's gone, it's certainly an option now.
Or might we lose Checo altogether? Might he end up going to another championship? I think in particular somewhere like IndyCar could suit him very much into the future. Morning, Daniel.
Morning.
What do you think? Do you think we may possibly lose him?
I think there is a risk we will, and I think that would be one of the saddest stories that we've seen in Formula One in recent years, because he's a huge talent driving at his peak. Does he want to drive for an Alfa Romeo? Does he want to drive a Haas, who at the moment are struggling to get out of Q1?
Yeah. Or does he want to go somewhere and compete? Who knows? Wherever Sergio ends up, they will be an incredibly fortunate team or championship. For now, though, we wait to see what Sebastian Vettel and Aston Martin can achieve in 2021, and we look forward to Formula One's first ever racing weekend here at Mugello. For now, though, from Lawrence, from myself, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you later.